Invite viewers to post their location and local time. The day begins with a reminder, wherever you're tuning in from. Whatever time's blinking on your phone, type your city and what's on your clock right now in the comments below, because stories like this have a way of connecting people across miles, state lines, and sometimes courtrooms. Marcus Fricks figures he's just another tired dad barbecuing in the heart of suburban Ohio, flipping burgers with the kind of focus reserved for middle-aged men and distracted magicians. Willowbrook Estates seems perfect on the surface. Kids on bikes, dogs that wag instead of bite. The kind of place where you half expect a sitcom jingle to play every time you open the mailbox, which, incidentally, never contains anything but flyers for gutter cleaning and the occasional HOA newsletter that smells faintly of passive aggression. Marcus, an electrician by trade, buys the fixer-upper for one reason: his teenage daughter Emma, who's still reeling from his recent divorce and needs something in her life to actually make sense. The windows are a money pit, leaking more heat than a busted microwave, so he does what any sensible dad would. He researches, he submits his forms, he gets HOA approval, stamped and signed. Double-pane vinyl, historically accurate, installed by a contractor whose business card has a picture of a raccoon in a hard hat. 2 weeks after the new windows gleam in the sunlight, the first thundercloud rolls in. A text from Karen Whitmore, HOA president, the kind of person who probably arranges her Skittles by color and has a favorite highlighter for every day of the week. Mr. Fricks, your modifications are unacceptable. Marcus blinks. He's got the letter in his hand. Karen, I have written approval. But Karen's voice on the phone is as icy as the wind that used to leak through his old glass. Approval was conditional pending board review. Suddenly, Marcus is the villain of a story he didn't know he was in, standing in the fluorescent-lit community center, holding up his paperwork like it's the Constitution, while Karen, flanked by her leather portfolio and her "you are out of order" face, slides a violation notice across the table as if she's serving a death sentence on fine china. $500 fine, doubling every month. Nobody meets his eye. He wonders, not for the last time, if everyone's been hypnotized by the smell of burned coffee. Historians still argue whether Karen's vendetta began out of boredom, malice, or just a pathological love of arbitrary rules. But Marcus's life quickly becomes a swirl of late-night paperwork, legalese, and the creeping suspicion that he's the only one awake in a town full of sleepwalkers. The threat isn't just financial, it's existential. Foreclosure, court, the prospect of losing the one place Emma still calls home. And while most dads fight monsters under the bed, Marcus is fighting the monster who lives 2 houses down and runs the HOA. All the while, his neighbors drift further away, as if Karen's disapproval might be contagious. And every time he opens the mailbox, there's another letter reminding him he's one late payment away from oblivion. The only quirky upside? He's learned there are exactly 7 kinds of legal notice paper, and the one Karen uses smells suspiciously like lavender. The fluorescent hum of Marcus's spare bedroom is starting to sound more like mission control than the crash pad of a divorced electrician, and the timeline of Karen's attacks now snakes around the walls, looping over thumbtacks, colored string, and a growing collection of photos, evidence of a war fought with clipboards and cold calls. He's got printouts of every HOA violation ever issued, a binder thick as a New York deli sandwich labeled window precedents. And Emma, when she visits, jokes that her dad is either building a conspiracy wall or rehearsing for the world's dullest episode of CSI: Willowbrook. But Marcus's obsessions aren't just for show. Each night, he traces the pattern a little deeper, asking why Karen targets him when nearly 50 neighbors have the same vinyl windows, gleaming with the same manufacturer's sticker and the same subtle warping in the morning sun. He drives the neighborhood counting windows like a census taker on a mission, discovering Mrs. Patterson's house on Elm Street, the local bank president's wife, has the same replacement panes, praised in last month's HOA meeting minutes as a model for community pride. Meanwhile, Carlos the mechanic, who rents 3 blocks away, gets hammered with fines for the exact same glass. Historians still argue whether the phrase selective enforcement was coined for HOAs or for ancient Roman emperors, but Marcus can see the pattern forming in red and blue pushpins. Blue for Karen's friends, red for everyone else. The air in the evidence room grows thick with the scent of burnt coffee, highlighter ink, and anxiety. The quirky detail? He discovers that Janet Bennett, the sweet 73-year-old garden gnome collector who's been here longer than the neighborhood mailboxes, keeps all her HOA paperwork stored in a fireproof safe, right between her tax returns and her late husband's honorable discharge papers. Just in case, she says, the dictatorship ever goes full banana republic. One evening, Janet calls him over and, with hands that tremble just a little, hands him a manila folder. Inside is the smoking gun, emails between Karen and her inner circle, discussing targeted enforcement, renters and blue-collar types first, less likely to fight back. Marcus's heart skips. This isn't petty neighbor drama. It's civil rights territory, the kind of line you can't cross without making history or headlines. The more he digs, the uglier it gets. Property liens filed without proper legal notice, fines stacking like snowdrifts, foreclosure threats typed out in the cold, official font of suburban intimidation. Emma, always sharper than she lets on, asks why the rules seem to change based on the car you drive or the language you speak at home. There's no good answer, just more paperwork, more pushpins, and a growing sense that the only way out is straight through the middle. The neighborhood seems to contract and expand with every discovery. Every late-night whisper from Janet, every wary glance from Carlos, and every joke Emma cracks about the window wars reminds Marcus that this is bigger than vinyl and glass. It's about who belongs and who gets bullied into silence. And in a plot twist even HOA historians might debate for decades, Marcus realizes that maybe, just maybe, his weird little evidence room is about to make the world a little bit bigger for everyone on the block. If the sound of paper shuffling could signal revolution, Marcus's house would be headquarters by now. The showdown comes faster than anyone expects. Federal investigators, lawyers with neckties more expensive than his whole suit, and a local judge whose bored expression fades the moment Sarah Martinez, his legal champion, presents evidence so damning the entire courtroom seems to lean in. Marcus is nervous, hands sweating, jaw clenched, but the old electrician's habit kicks in, steady as a metronome. Document, verify, ground every circuit. Karen sits across the aisle, trying to project the poise of a real estate mogul, but the effect is ruined when her attorney whispers just a little too urgently, and the board secretary, Helen, nearly drops her notepad. The quirky tidbit? The judge's bailiff, an avid model train collector, offers Marcus a lucky miniature caboose just before testimony. An inside joke among courthouse regulars, they say, for luck at life's legal crossings. Historians still argue whether Willowbrook's courtroom saga was more Civil War or sitcom, but neighbors who once avoided Marcus now crowd the gallery, whispering, nodding, and even giggling when Janet Bennett waves her manila folder overhead like the Stanley Cup. The testimony lands harder than anyone expects. Photos, timelines, emails spelling out discrimination, property records connecting Karen's shell company to a half-dozen foreclosed homes, each bought low after fines drove out the wrong sort of resident. Marcus feels, for a wild moment, like the entire neighborhood is breathing through his lungs, holding a collective breath as the judge dismisses the foreclosure case, refers Karen for federal prosecution, and all but quotes Marcus's own evidence room. When ordinary people refuse to back down, even the most comfortable bully is suddenly standing on a floor full of trapdoors. But desperate people rarely retreat quietly, and in the weeks after Karen's world collapses, the retaliation is as unhinged as it is petty. Anonymous calls to licensing boards, drive-by PI photo shoots, a restraining order petition with more holes than a colander, even a brick hurled through Marcus's window while Emma studies at the kitchen table. Yet each attack only rallies the neighborhood tighter. Carlos Martinez brings over a floodlight for the porch. Mrs. Patterson offers to host a legal rights seminar in her backyard, and Emma, ever the optimist, proposes a Freedom from Harassment Day festival, complete with a dunk tank, for educational purposes only. It's the little things, the jokes, the casseroles on his doorstep, the note from Janet promising to teach the kids her secret gnome recipe, that remind Marcus how quickly fear melts when people choose each other over silence. So when the news vans show up the night of the emergency HOA meeting, when Sarah reads the settlement out loud and the applause shivers the ceiling tiles, Marcus stands in the front row, not just as a winner, but as a witness, neighbor, and dad. The community that once let Karen weaponize loneliness now stands linked arm in arm, proof that you can't bulldoze hope or fine it out of existence. Historians may debate the true catalyst for Willowbrook's rebirth, but for Marcus, the answer is simple. Sometimes, you fix a broken circuit not by replacing the parts, but by finally letting the current flow where it always belonged, through the people, together, at last. Night falls gently over Willowbrook Estates now, the air perfumed by freshly cut grass and the faint echo of laughter drifting from backyard fences, as if the whole neighborhood breathes easier. Marcus stands in the glow of his kitchen, the same windows that once sparked a war now polished to a soft shimmer by Emma's handprints and the sun's last golden rays. There's no more paperwork on the table, just a cup of coffee, half warm, and the comforting rustle of a scholarship essay Emma's revising for college, her pen tapping to the rhythm of a future that feels, for once, wide open. Outside, the sound of children playing on the new swings reminds Marcus of how quickly fear can be replaced by belonging, and how every little victory, a garden gnome in Janet's yard, a neighbor's nod, the subtle absence of Karen's watchful stare, marks another thread in the tapestry of a community reclaimed. The legal files are boxed and stored now, but he keeps the lucky caboose from the courthouse on his desk, a reminder that every journey is made up of small, stubborn steps, and that sometimes the most important thing is simply refusing to be moved when the storm comes knocking. He knows, as the night draws in, that justice isn't a single bright flash but a patient, quiet sunrise, spreading warmth over every porch, every mailbox, every heart that dared to hope. He whispers a thank you to the quiet, to the neighbors who became friends, to Emma's fierce joy, and to the story that will live on in the laughter of a community that finally remembers what it means to look out for each other.